What's going on, guys? It's Mike Norris. I'm here today with Gaetano DiNardi. What's up, Gaetano?
Yo, what's up, brother? How you doing?
Doing really well. We were just chatting a little bit before this, and I think I initially discovered Gaetano through a LinkedIn post, but then as I started going through all of his stuff, all of his background, I was like, man, this guy's done a lot of stuff. And you started in the music industry, and then you kind of like translated that over into marketing. Noticed some principles and everything were the same. And I saw a really old I don't know if it was really old, but I saw a blog post you did for Moz, and it was huge, man. It was robust. Like you put a lot of time into that, I'm sure. And then I saw like some recent interviews about your life and everything and how you're bridging the gap. And I was like, this guy's gonna be a phenomenal guest. I got to get him in here.
No, I appreciate that, man. Experience combined some cool things together, which has brought me into the world of B2B. So I don't have the maybe conventional or standard path to where I'm at today, and we can talk about that.
Yeah. Well, let's start with that. I mean, what initially got you into the B2B marketing field, and what similarities did you see?
Yeah, I liked one thing I liked about B2B marketing was that you could really start somewhere if you're, at a smaller SaaS company, for example, and grow something to be great. What I had seen with like a lot of the job opportunities in B2C was you would often become this very small ant in a giant farm. So I didn't want to join a company where I was going to be an insignificant ant on a large farm. I wanted to carry a lot of weight, hold a lot of weight, and I think that's what's cool about software is you can often start some place that is younger in its journey as a company. There's many startups out there, and it's just great for learning. And I was attracted to that. I was attracted to the idea of going somewhere that was up and coming but still young and able to have a heavier impact, carry more weight. And that was primarily what attracted me to B2B. And I was in an agency as my first marketing job. And I had a lot of B2B SaaS clients, and I got a hang of it real quick. Like I just figured out, all right, all these companies are trying to do the same things.
Sure.
The tactics don't really change. The audience and customers change. So not to say that it's cookie cutter or robotic, but I just understood the formula. And so I was attracted to B2B with that in mind. And so after agency, I went to a company called Pipe Drive. And it was exactly what I thought it was going to be: a little chaotic, a little unstructured, but also a lot of learning opportunity. I got to travel. They were based in Estonia, which is a tiny little country in Eastern Europe. And I got to go there like 20 times. Yeah, so that was cool. And I learned a ton there. And then I essentially decided that it was, I got really good in a really short amount of time at in-house B2B SaaS marketing. And Max Altschuler from Sales Hacker hit me up. He had read some case study I had done on Pipe Drive. And that's kind of the theme here, actually. What you'll notice is that I always come out with a big case study at every company that I work with.
Awesome.
And that has propelled my personal growth and career growth, because people read these case studies and they're like, man, this is some good shit. This is exactly what you said to me on, earlier in the call. And your stock value increases when you're able to do that. And so that's essentially what I did. Pipe Drive, I came out with a case study, then Sales Hacker came out with another case study. And now here's the thing though, you got to actually get results. So
yeah, of course.
you can't write a case study if you don't. Yeah. You can't write a case study if you don't do anything and you don't get any results. Even if you fail, a case study could be good. But that was the common denominator. At every company I went to, I got results, wrote about how I did it. And, I'm oversimplifying what it takes to have a successful marketing career, but that essentially has been the playbook. And so fast forward to today, leading growth marketing for Nextiva. We just hit a big milestone, 200 million in annual revenue.
Wow.
We got featured in TechCrunch. We're a private company, and we have no outside funding. And so that was the basis on being featured in TechCrunch recently, because not many companies of our size and revenue have done it private and not venture backed in any way. And so, I lead a team of 10 phenomenal growth marketers now, and we're having a lot of fun. So that's where we're at.
Well, kudos to you, man. That's certainly an amazing journey to see just the growth and then to hear about the case studies each way. I think that's I kind of want to dive into that a little bit before we talk about Nextiva and stuff. But what inspired you initially to start doing those case studies? Was it because you were looking for additional opportunities and you thought it might kick you off, or you just wanted to create some great content, see where it took you?
Yeah, it's actually something I learned from this guy, Michael King.
Okay.
He's the founder of the first agency I ever worked at, I Pull Rank. But he was really good at using case studies to get clients.
Okay.
And the way that and I like the way he did case studies. He really broke them down, and he went, that style of going all out, 10,000 words with examples and step-by-steps. I mean, he's the master of that. I think I absorbed that from him. But for me, it was more so, I don't want to say revenge, but I want to say, haha, I told you so. Because I had some doubters and some skeptics early on in my career. I'm not going to say who they are, but I came out with those, big pieces more so to just be like, you know what? Here you go. Boom. I know that those doubters are going to read this. So for me, it was more of a place of like proving something. I had something to prove. And I find that in hiring marketers, whenever I find the marketer who has something to prove, they just end up being the best hires. And maybe something happened in their previous company where they weren't given the responsibility they felt that they should have had, or they weren't given a shot at the big leagues, or whatever the case may be. I like hiring people who've got sort of that. Yeah, I'm going to prove someone wrong in this next thing that I do. And so, and all that to say, the case studies were more so of me proving to myself that like I could do this, right? Like I've often read other case studies and said, man, I know like the shit that I've done is just as good, if not better than this. And so it was more just a challenge to myself, but it just so happens that good results came from doing it.
Sure. Do you have any tips for someone who would make a case study like that, in any kind of, whether it be to pitch business, whether it be to pitch themselves? I mean, I'm sure it takes a lot of time, but is there anything you've learned to make that more efficient for you?
Yeah. Well, I would say that, for one, you can't put a time limit on how long it takes to create one, because they do take a long time, like anywhere from the 40 to 60 hour range if you're really going to do a true teardown. And so, I would say that also, like, as you're getting the results, you should start creating this thing while you're while things are happening. Like for example, like with Sales Hacker, I didn't write the case study after the company got acquired. I was writing the case study already, like while we were doing these things. I was like, every time, because in my mind I knew I was going to do it. So every time we had like a big win, like we ranked for a new keyword, or we hit a new milestone, or we did something different process wise that would help us accelerate our growth, I would sort of just stuff that. I would document that thing, and I would stuff it in a folder. And then when it came time to really formulating the skeletal outline for the case study, I already had all these brain dump things in there, sort of this mind cloud of stuff. And so it was easier to go from that versus starting from a blank canvas. So I would say, start doing this in advance. Start putting down like little mental post-its, or drop everything in a Google Drive folder or something like that. And then you have those wins that compile to be what ultimately will become the case study.
Perfect. Yeah. And you think it's absolutely worth it, even given that amount of time and everything?
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, it sticks with you for life. I mean, that Sales Hacker case study came out 2018. You're still mentioning it now.
Yep. Yeah, good point.
Like anytime. I mean, I don't know if I'll see, because it's different. Once you have accomplished a lot, you don't necessarily need to quote unquote prove yourself in like interview process and stuff like that. But like someday, after I want to do something at Nextiva, I don't know what that is, but like if the day comes, I could just send that to somebody. Here you go. this is what I've done. Check it out. Like, I don't need to like re-explain the whole thing again. Or
Sure.
if clients want to work with me and I start my own agency someday or go solo, I can be like, yo, I know exactly what you're trying to do. Who's the case out, and that builds credibility and trust. And so that will maybe or probably help me win business in the future if I decide to use that as an asset.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, awesome. So what then obviously you transitioned to Nextiva and you've got a team of, I think you said 10 people. What does your role entail right now?
Yeah. Well, really it's all things growth. So
Okay.
it's marketing's influenced contribution. It's marketing's contribution to revenue or influenced revenue. And
Mhm.
so really the way we're operating right now is in 2-week sprints. We have a lot of moving projects and a lot of tasks that are happening at once. But one reason why I think we're successful is we don't spend a lot of time in meetings.
Okay.
We don't spend a lot of time strategizing. We don't spend a lot of time talking. We actually spend much more time doing.
That's
And
great.
so that's a marketing philosophy that I have is why spend all this time to create a 6-month roadmap when we could just maybe do a 3-month top 10 list of things we think we should do, and we can call that OKRs. It doesn't have to be overly complicated, and then we can work against those in a 2-week sprint. I don't think marketing needs to be so complicated and
Yeah.
so complex. I think a lot of even at our size, you would expect us to have like much more rigid plans and strategic roadmaps and go to market and all this and that. But at the end of the day, we operate in an agile fashion. And so that's how I can get 10 marketers to really march forward and get shit done because I'm not micromanaging their every move. I just
Sure.
let them run freely and say, look, here are the big things that I think we should get done in the next quarter. But how you guys want to manage your time and manage your tasks is really on you. I'm here, I'm a player coach, so I'm not just at the top delegating shit out. I actually do quite a lot of execution work myself. But I think, the main thing is having a great rapport, great levels of trust with the team, and we just have fun while we're working. And I think a lot of people on the team, I can't speak for everyone, but I know
Sure.
for the majority of them, no one wakes up in the morning excited about selling phone systems. That's what we sell, cloud
Right.
digital phone software, right? Who wakes up and says, yeah, I'm going to go market cloud phone systems today. It's going to be something sexy. It's really not. But what they like is working with me. And
Yeah.
the culture that I've fostered is a really fun and I would say positive and culture of growth, not just professionally, but personally. And
Uh,
so all that being said, I kind of went into a bit of a whirlwind on that, but we have a great team culture and we're agile and we move fast. And I think that's why we're successful.
I love that, man. So what kind of things, it's probably just come naturally, so it might be hard to put it into words, but what kind of things have you done to foster that culture and make sure that everyone feels comfortable to move at that pace and understand all those goals?
Yeah. So I think like one thing that is just kind of I break a lot of norms. I think that's how I would
Okay.
categorize it. I break a lot of norms. So pretty much every person that joins the team, they'll say something like, "Yeah, I had weekly one-on-ones with my manager. I had weekly team meetings, and and I would always ask, like, approximately how much of your week is spent in meetings." And I would hear something like, maybe 10 hours or so. And I went, well, it's not going to be like that here. It might be two or 3 hours a week. It won't be 10 or 12 hours. um, i also I also have fostered a very anti-email culture. So we don't really use email. Everything gets logged in Asana as the central source of communication for
Okay.
project and task oriented work. And really, it's just a lot of it I can't teach either or explain. Like a lot of it is just naturally my personality, and I hire people who I know I'll have good chemistry with.
Sure.
And
That's
so
important.
yeah, exactly. So the natural chemistry and our philosophies on marketing are already aligned because that stuff has been vetted in the interview process. And I'll say finally that people who are applying to join the team, they already kind of know me, who I am, how I operate, my style, and that attracts like-minded people. I'm not
Sure.
going to get the Ivy League, Stanford buttoned up types to apply to join my team because it's just not really the fit. That I would say that I carry sort of a rebellious um flair to a lot of the things that I
Sure.
do. And I like hiring underdogs. I like hiring the rebels. I like hiring to even a certain extent the rejects, the
Sure.
companies that the companies that are out there, that are some really successful companies, I think would not hire a lot of the folks that I've hired on my team. They probably wouldn't even hire me. And so
Sure.
I like having that like-mindedness among the underdog. The underdog is the kind of the thing that puts us all in commonality.
I love that, man. Was there ever,
Yeah.
I mean, were you always like that, or was there a point in time where you were like, maybe I should go against the grain here and kind of do my own thing, and I think that'll be successful? And were you scared at all to do that at first, or was it like, oh, I should follow these best practices because that's what everyone's doing and that's what they always tell me to do and that's what we should do? Or were you just like,
Mm. Yeah, that's a good one. So yeah, so I'll just tell you, pretty much from day one, it's just like for me, it's just been like, nah,
nah? Okay.
I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And I think my Michael King, the guy that I worked with in my first agency job, he was very much a rebel himself. He was a guy that was an international touring rapper, and he was also one of these guys that knew how to code every language and is an SEO mastermind.
Damn.
And
It's
he's
quite
got
the
a
combo.
rare combo of unique skill sets. And me being a musician, I was learning about SEO kind of on my own, and I had already known of Mike. I aligned to that, and I was the second person hired at his company. When I left, the company was like 12, 13 people. But essentially, like, a lot of the things that he would do is stuff that I admired. He would challenge ways of doing things with clients. He would
Oh, sure.
he would yeah, he really instilled a lot of that in me. And so one thing that like happened was, look, I was always late for work, and he just accepted it. Like, all right, you do good work, but you're going to be late. That's fine. so I just so yeah. So I just kind of realized, like, shit, as long as I do good work, that's not to say I can get away with anything, but
Sure.
I'm not, I don't need to be held to the same kind of norms and standards as everyone else. So, even my style of how I dress, like, I would show up to work with hats and basketball shorts and, tank tops and t-shirts. I was never that corporate buttoned up type.
Mhm.
And that carried with me to Pipe Drive. Everyone kind of knew right away, all right, this guy he's different. He doesn't fall into that sort of ecosystem of just kind of accepting what is expected of you to do and never question anything. I would question everything, and I just wouldn't show up to meetings because I would challenge why there had to be a meeting. I would challenge, why is the blog being measured on MQLs or leads? That doesn't make
Sure.
sense. I was against gating content a while ago. I was against doing content for leads a while ago.
That seems to
And
be the
so
new
that carries
thing.
all the way.
Everyone's on
Yeah,
that
yeah,
hot topic now.
yeah. Because for so long it's been broken.
Yeah.
Webinars for lead gen, I was against that. Sponsored content syndication, I was against that a long time ago. Banner ads and display ads, I was against that a long time ago. Just based on, I get that the clicks are cheap, but
Yeah.
it's just shit traffic. I mean, who do you know that clicks on a banner ad these days when they're going to Business Insider to read something? I mean, come on.
I
So
know.
yeah, exactly. When have you ever read a blog post and bought something right after that? Never.
Not
So,
very often. No.
yeah. So I just would question, I would question stuff, and I had this rebellious sort of flair to myself all along. And fast forward to today, even our CEO says, look, we're not going to get you to show up to meetings with all the rest of the corporate guys. Like, I don't really talk to our chief revenue officer a lot. I don't really talk to our VP of sales a lot. I don't really talk to, our VP of ops. I don't do brainstorm sessions. I don't do whiteboard sessions. I hate whiteboards. So, I have a quirky way of doing things, but I'm ultimately just all about really results and customers. And it was just always weird to me how B2B marketers got so far away from listening to sales calls and talking to customers and understanding customers, and instead wasting their time on all this nonsense, tracking metrics that don't matter, sitting in all these long ass meetings and 3-day long quarterly business reviews and all these, just, I would say, human constructs that were you know what I'm saying? Human constructs that I just say, why is this? And so I know that was a very long-winded answer, but in short, like, I just have always been this way, and I realize, like, look, companies will trade off people who do good work that are quirky. They'll take someone who gets great results for being quirky. That's just what it is. And so I'm cool with that.
I think too, you see a lot more of that in the marketing world, at least lately, is people who are kind of going against the grain are doing things that are a little bit outside the box, and they're working. And as long as the results are there, like you said, like, who cares if you show up late? Are you getting me more leads than someone else would be? Or, are you doing things that someone else would not be? Then absolutely, man. I mean, why not have you? But you touched on something
that's right
that I think is really important. And that's, I think a lot of people fall into this sort of analysis paralysis type philosophy where we're in this world today where there's so much data and there's so many KPIs, and like, you're looking at everything and you're trying to make sense of it and you're trying to digest it all, and you almost can't pick like a clear direction to go in, or you're doing the wrong things because you're not looking at the right things. And there's something to be said about just doing it. And like, then if you see the results, like, cool, let's keep doing it. Or, let's do something similar to that, rather than like, here's our massive plan that I don't even know 6 months out if, we'll be able to see where we're going right now, but I'm going to plan it for you anyway. And it's all estimated and who knows where it's going.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. The thing with that is, like, you should ask, like, why are you, like, a lot of even companies I've consulted with, they'll say something like, we got to grow our email list. All right, why? I don't know. Our CEO just says we need a big email list. Well, what are you gonna do when you have a big email list? What are you gonna do with that? Yeah, it's a good question. So a lot of times companies want to do shit they don't even know why. And the thing, and a very common one is, we need more leads, we need more MQLs. Well, why do you need more MQLs? Well, because sales is they're bored. The sales reps, the SDRs are bored. They don't have enough work to do. They're going outbound and stuff like that. But they used to have a lot more MQLs or raw leads to deal with, and now they don't. So something must have happened because leads went down suddenly. And then I'll just say, well, you know what? Leads have increased. Reps that are less busy than they used to be. That is true. And the reason why a lot of this happens is because companies get addicted to, like, the lead volume. They always start to feel like it's a volume play. And the reality is, a lot of those are just low quality leads that marketing has generated from doing dumb tactics, like doing webinars for leads, sponsored webinars for leads, gated content downloads, purchasing lists, doing sponsoring virtual events, doing content syndication. Just all you're doing is collecting contact info. That's all you're doing there. And if that's what you consider to be a lead, you might as well just buy that info from Zoom Info or some database, like Discover.org,
Yeah.
and then you can have sales reps go and contact them doing outbound, and you would acquire that contact info for pennies on the dollar rather
Yep.
than going through all this nonsense of trying to acquire a lead by doing, ineffective marketing tactics. And so, I guess where I was going with all that was a lot of companies have to rethink the way they view their funnel.
Mhm.
And if they don't, what they will end up doing is wasting a lot of time. And so what you were saying about like perfectionism and
Yeah.
analysis paralysis and looking at bad metrics and stuff, we don't do that here. Anything that we do that is clearly brand, we don't have any shame in saying this, we're doing this for brand. We don't have any shame in doing that. We don't have any shame in doing top of funnel content marketing for brand. If we happen to get people who sign up to our email list as a result of that, then great. But that's not something that we have any shame in saying
Sure.
that we're doing. And so for us, it's about creating awesome demand, capturing demand. And there's no better sign than somebody going to your website, filling out a form for a demo request and saying, yes, I'm ready to learn more about this product to solve a problem that I have. You can't use marketing trickery into accelerating pipeline. You just can't force buying intent. Can't do it. And so I guess that's my rant on that subject.
Oh, that's great. What would you say? What would you say you should? What do you have success with then? If you're not doing all these other things, what channels do you think are the best, and what should people generally consider?
Yeah. So that's the other thing too, right? Like I align my skill sets to companies that have products and services that align well with my strengths. So, for example, I'm great at search marketing, and there happens to be a ton of demand in the industry that I'm currently in for SEO, paid advertising on Google, really inbound channels. So, all things inbound. I wouldn't go and work at a company that is only outbound and has zero inbound marketing going, no organic marketing going. Like there are many examples of companies out there who are essentially muscling their way to a couple million in ARR just through outbound and cold calling and stuff like that, and
Sure.
maybe some product marketing. But I wouldn't join a company like that because my skill sets and marketing philosophies don't align to those types of revenue models. And so I align much better to companies who are aligning their revenue model to a mix of channels, inbound with outbound, or maybe majority inbound. And so what works is typically what is best for your revenue model. So
Sure.
for Nextiva, for example, our average contract values are not 20,000. They're much lower. Our sales cycles are faster. There's a lot of keyword opportunity and search based opportunity for the things that we sell. And so for us, it's about intent channels, and the buying intent comes from search marketing and affiliate marketing and brand. Those are like the big levers that move the needle. Social is not a big deal for us. Paid social is not a big deal. Things like YouTube can be effective in expanding into, you know, more visibility, more reach, more awareness through higher funnel means. So YouTube is effective, but at the end of the day, when you have an inbound machine, it's all about generating high quality traffic and making sure that that traffic converts when it gets to the website. And then the secret sauce is really in what happens to the inbound lead response and working with sales to optimize the flow of leads that are coming into the sales ecosystem, and then working those leads and working every day with sales to optimize that inbound lead response process and follow up, and ultimately present a proposal and close. So all that to say, it's not really, I can't really tell any given marketer at this point what channels are the best, what channels are the
Sure.
worst. I would say you should align those channel approaches to whatever best fits your revenue model.
Well, I think that's an excellent answer. I mean, not everyone can be everywhere at once anyway. And then to just do everything, a lot of people will come to me and say, well, my competitor is just absolutely destroying it in terms of this channel. And so I want to be there and I want to be above them. It's like, well, maybe
Yeah.
a different avenue might be better for you. Maybe we find a different channel where they're not absolutely crushing it. They don't have 10 times your budget and you're actually really good
Yeah.
at this. Maybe you can take your strengths and pull them in different ways. And I think that aligns really well with what you just said.
Yeah, exactly. That's why copying competitors is bad.
Yeah.
Because they especially your bigger competitors,
Mhm.
like take Zoom, for example, right? They're not necessarily a competitor of ours, but yeah, they're enormous. So they can afford to run Google ads 24/7 nonstop and never stop bidding. They can afford to dump, millions on airport ads at San Francisco. Some other companies can't afford to do that. And so if you just try and copy what your much deeper pocketed competitors are doing, you're probably going to set yourself up for disappointment.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you're not gonna have a good time with that. So I know you
No.
said, as you were touching on it, that some of your marketing is just for brand. Like you might just do certain things for brand. Is your entire exec team kind of bought in on the fact that not all marketing can be directly tied back to revenue in a very easy manner? Are they cool with that? And if so, did it take some conversations to get to that point, or was that always an understanding, or how did that look?
Yeah, so for one, they are bought in. And I think that starts with our CEO. His name is Thomas Gorney. I think he's one of the best CEOs on the planet. Working with him has just been such a breath of fresh air. He not only understands marketing really well, but he embraces it, and he loves marketing. Actually, he's very passionate about marketing. In fact, it was one of the things that surprised me quite a lot about this company is how knowledgeable and caring about marketing our CEO is. Many CEOs in SaaS businesses are primarily like product or sometimes sales or sometimes customer support focused. But most of the time, co-founder led companies who are at the CEO level, they really focus pretty much all product and customers. But he, Thomas really cares a lot about marketing and he gets it. And so, convincing him that we need to do certain activities for brand is not a difficult conversation. In fact, it's something that he supports fully and embraces. And the reality is most of the C-level team doesn't really get marketing. I wouldn't expect our CFO to get it. Our chief revenue officer to get it. They may think certain things are good for marketing, like when they see us being covered in TechCrunch, like that's obviously something they think is good. So you do have to explain you have to explain a lot of the things to them. But at the end of the day, if you have like a CEO that's like bought in, like you're gold. And so I've been blessed with that, and it hasn't been much of a power struggle. And that's the reason why. And so I guess the point is, to marketers, choose carefully where you decide to work. Because if you work somewhere that has like a CEO with an archaic point of view on marketing, it's going to be really tough. And that's just the way it is. And so my advice there is try and find a company that has executive team members who align with your marketing philosophies.
Perfect. Yeah. And in doing that, I would assume you built out your team then based on the structure that you found to be most effective, right? I mean, why wouldn't you? It was a dumb question. What kind of roles do you have on your team now of those 10 people?
Yeah. So everybody basically has a similar title to an extent. It's growth marketing manager, demand gen manager. But what you'll find at other companies is that people with those titles, they're not really doing too much real marketing. You know what I mean? A lot of them are just managing vendor relationships. They're just managing budgets. They might be tweaking things here or there. A lot of them might be using agencies for most of the shit that they're doing. We're very, very, very little usage on agencies. We don't really use agencies for anything unless we really need to. And usually when we hire an agency, it's not because of skill deficit, it's because of time deficit, and we may want to do things faster. So that's my rule when it comes to agencies. Are we hiring this agency because we're not skilled enough to do it? I would almost guarantee you that's never the case. We will always work with an agency when there's just a resource gap or we just need to accelerate something on timing. Sure. But back to the kinds of team members I have, everyone has the title that's more or less same: growth or demand gen, page optimization, customer marketing, link building, and some other technical assignments as well.
Okay. So does everyone kind of have a really, are they kind of all like a jack of all trades then? Where they're doing maybe some content writing, they're doing some SEO, they're doing some email work, all that kind of stuff? Or are they, does anyone specialize in any given things, or is it kind of like across the board? You split up the work a little bit.
Yeah, it's specialized for sure. So
okay.
People that work on SEO every day work on SEO. People that work on paid ads typically just stay working on paid ads because you need a degree of specialization in order to focus.
Sure.
And so there, you know, for example, today, someone came to me and said, yo, I'm kind of bored of doing the same kinds of tasks. How can I spice things up? I want to do some other shit. And I put that person on some new assignments, you know, so there's plenty to go around. I always tell the team, you know, feel free to speak up when you feel like you're not being challenged enough or you want to do something different. But for the most part, everyone is specialized and focused on a specific area of marketing for sure.
Perfect. Is there anything new that you want to try in 2021? I know it was kind of an off the wall question.
I'll be honest with you, no. Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, I'll be honest with you, no. In fact, I'm skeptical to like a lot of the new shit that I see. To be honest with you, it's the fundamentals that we're going to double down on. So talking to customers, listening to sales calls, great copywriting, great messaging, great content distribution, focusing on the marketing flywheel, getting the fundamentals right. I'm a long-standing believer in that, and I don't really fall for a lot of the hype that I see out there. So you know, just sticking to the fundamentals is what my plan is for this year.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I kind of had the same philosophy as you, and I know Clubhouse is like the biggest thing right now. You know, it's all over everybody's and everything. Everyone's jumping on Clubhouse, but I'm like, man, that's not going to make or break your business. If you're not figuring it out right now without Clubhouse, Clubhouse is not going to be the answer. It's not like a Hail Mary approach or something. You know, you got to get the fundamentals down.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Clubhouse really. It's a lot of noise. Well, first of all, I'm not typically a fan of channels that I can't own myself.
Sure.
So you know, there's this concept in marketing, you know, on owned versus earned media. You know, when you invest a lot of time into something like Clubhouse, I mean, you can't control access to your followers. You have no way of really working that group of people into becoming, you know, a champion of you or your brand. Like, it's really tough. I think what Clubhouse is good for is people who are already massively popular or successful. They just have all their existing followers go follow them there. And then it becomes a one-way that's the problem with it. It becomes a lot of one-way microphoning. And also, just like I've noticed, a lot of ranting and rambling and poor advice being given. And I think it just enables narcissism. I see a lot of narcissism running rampant on Clubhouse. And so I would say, you know, maybe listen to it and check it out and see what it's about. If, you know, if it's something that's you feel it's going to work for you, go for it. But, you know, avoid chasing the shiny new toy.
Yeah. And not everyone should have a microphone.
Yeah. You know, it's too many people just want to talk. No one wants to listen.
Yeah. This is a huge problem in the world today. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for your time today, Gaetano. I really appreciate it, man. If someone wants to get a hold of you, wants to work with you, anything of that nature, where can they best reach you?
Yeah. Just follow me on LinkedIn. It's the easiest way.
All right, perfect. I actually follow you on LinkedIn. You have some great content, so I can vouch for that. How did you build up such a big following, by the way? What was it?
You know what, man? It was honestly just being who I am. I think, like, so here's what I'll say about it. There's really two things. You got to have a unique point of view, and you got to be consistent. So there are certain ways that people are going about manipulating engagement on LinkedIn. Like a lot of those, when you see people writing controversial posts and then they'll say agree or disagree, question mark, you're just inviting a million people to comment. And so when you optimize for comment engagement, you're self-amplifying yourself. That's a sneaky little tactic. And, I never fall for that. I don't comment on stuff that people are asking to comment on because I know what they're trying to do. Comment pizza if you want the link to my free guide, and a million people are leaving a pizza emoji. And it's, I've seen those tactics before. I think that's kind of corny. At the end of the day, for me, it's just a place to express. It's an outlet. It's a place for me to express my points of view on things that I'm seeing in the day-to-day business world. And so I think one driver of that followership has been authenticity. And the reason why there's authenticity is because I'm actually in it doing the fucking work. So if I was just screaming from the sidelines, not doing any work and just creating noise, it wouldn't gain as much traction. Now, unfortunately, that's what you have on LinkedIn. You do have a lot of noise creators.
Oh yeah.
But for me, it's just speaking to things that I observe in the day-to-day. So I guess that's kind of what it is for me.
No, that's great though, man. That's great. Oh, thank you. Well, thank you for sharing all that with me. Thank you for sharing literally everything as far as the breakdown of your team and all that. I've learned some good stuff today, and I'm sure our audience did too.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's been a pleasure catching up.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. Bye, everybody.